JPMorgan sent the emails on a Tuesday. 400,000 supposed customers of a startup they had just paid $175 million for. They waited. The results came back in minutes. 70% of the addresses undeliverable. The names had been invented. Every single address manufactured by a computer program, purchased for $18,000. JPMorgan had not bought a startup. They had bought a crime scene. This is the story of how a 26-year-old convinced the largest bank in America that she had built something she had not, and how the biggest due diligence failure in fintech history let her do it. What the bank's own employees suspected, they did not verify. What the engineers knew, they were not asked. One phone call could have ended it. Nobody made that call. She was 22 when she graduated from the Wharton School, 26 when she founded the company, 29 when she sold it. She was 33 when the judge called her crime biblical. The FAFSA form was created to help students. It was 22 pages long. It asked for information most families did not know they had. For millions of American families, it stood between their children and college funding. Charlie Javice said she understood this problem. She had lived it herself. She founded Frank in 2017, a digital platform that promised to simplify the entire application process. A product that could, she said, unlock thousands of dollars for students who needed it most. Forbes named her to their 30 under 30 list in 2019. She was everywhere: cable news, business magazines, speaking panels. The mission was real. Students did need help. The FAFSA problem was real. The actual product worked. Students did use it. Hundreds of thousands of them. 300,000 of them. That was the honest number. It was enough to build a real company on. But in 2020, the banks began to move. COVID had accelerated everything. Every major financial institution wanted young customers, and they were willing to pay for them. JPMorgan, led by Jamie Dimon, went on what insiders later called a fintech shopping spree. They were afraid of being left behind. One JPMorgan executive, Leslie Wims Morris, told the court she trusted the numbers completely. Frank, Javice told her, had more than 4 million users. It was on track for 10 million by year-end. There was one more factor. JPMorgan's deal team believed Bank of America was also circling Frank. The fear of losing the deal to a rival accelerated everything. Due diligence was compressed. Speed was prioritized over verification. Javice knew the window was open the week before the deal closed, with JPMorgan pressing for verification of the customer data. Javice walked into her head of engineering's office. Patrick Vovor was the chief engineer. He had built what Frank actually was. She asked him to generate synthetic data to make the numbers look like 4 million. He said he would not do anything illegal. He said he did not want to end up in an orange prison jumpsuit. He refused. Javice left the office. She made a different call. A college friend, someone with a computer program. $18,000 for a data set of 4.2 million synthetic names, addresses, and financial pedigrees. The data set was sent to a third-party verification firm JPMorgan had hired to authenticate Frank's customer numbers. The verification firm confirmed the data. They had not checked whether a single name was real. The deal closed. In September 2021, $175 million. Javice became a managing director at JPMorgan. She was given an office, a salary, a $20 million retention bonus contract. But here is what she had already set in motion. The 4 million fake names existed in a file, sitting in JPMorgan's systems, waiting. JPMorgan's plan was to market financial products to Frank's student base, the students that would become lifelong customers. They designed the email campaigns. They prepared the outreach. Nobody at JPMorgan questioned the data again. They had already verified it. The clock was running. In September 2022, exactly 1 year after the acquisition, something went wrong inside JPMorgan's marketing systems. The emails went out to a test batch, 400,000 addresses. 70% bounced back as undeliverable. Only 1.1% of the remainder were even opened. The numbers were impossible. A real customer database even a mediocre one, does not bounce at 70%. These addresses had never belonged to real people. They had never existed. JPMorgan suspended Javice in September 2022. She was terminated for cause in November. Then JPMorgan did something extraordinary. They sued her for fraud, and the terms of her acquisition deal required JPMorgan to pay her legal defense costs while they prosecuted her. Her legal fees exceeded $100 million. JPMorgan paid every cent. Javice countersued JPMorgan. She called it buyer's remorse. She argued they had always known what they were getting. April 2023, federal prosecutors in Manhattan charged her on 4 counts: securities fraud, wire fraud, bank fraud, conspiracy to commit, all 3. She pled not guilty. She was released on $2 million bail. She surrendered her passports. She moved to Miami. She became a Pilates instructor, teaching classes several hours a day. And she waited for her trial. The trial opened in February 2025. Prosecutor Rashmi Paskaran told the jury what she intended to prove. She had lied. She had manufactured the evidence of her own success. She had sold JPMorgan a company whose only real asset was a story she had made up. The defense had a different theory. JPMorgan had buyer's remorse. The government's financial aid regulations had changed after the deal, making the student data less valuable. JPMorgan was covering their mistake by destroying her. Then the engineer took the stand. Patrick Vovor, the man who had refused to fabricate the data himself, the man who had said he did not want to end up in an orange prison jumpsuit. He testified that Javice had asked him to generate synthetic data, that she had asked another executive, Olivier Amar, to pressure him, that he had refused, both of them. What the defense said next would define the entire shape of the trial. They suggested Vovor had a crush on Javice, that he was resentful because she had not wanted to date him, that his entire testimony was motivated by personal rejection. Vovor denied it. The jury listened. For 5 weeks, the prosecution played emails, text messages, and internal communication in which Javice had called the Elizabeth Holmes sentence 11 years ridiculous. Prosecutors noted what they called an alarming trend: founders fabricating their companies to attract buyers and vowing to send a message. March 28, 2025. The jury returned after deliberation. 12 people who had heard 5 weeks of evidence. Javice sat at the defendant's table. The forewoman stood, guilty, on all 4 counts. The defendant sat, without expression. She left court, without speaking. JPMorgan had paid $100 million to prosecute the woman who had defrauded them. Of $175 million, the net loss, $275 million, for a startup with 300,000 real customers. September 2025. Sentencing. Javice addressed the court. She said she was haunted, that her failure had transformed something meaningful into something infamous. She wept. The judge looked at the record of her charitable work. The soup kitchens at age 7, the programs for incarcerated women. He said she had assembled a very powerful list. Then he sentenced her. 85 months, 7 years, plus forfeiture of $22 million in illegally obtained stock and bonuses, plus $287 million in restitution. The judge called the fraud biblical. Among the many commandments in the Bible are the commandments of just weights and measures. Yours was not a just weight and measure. Frank was shut down in January 2023. Its website went offline. The product that had actually worked, the FAFSA simplification tool that 300,000 students had used, was gone. Forbes later included her in what they called their Hall of Shame. 10 picks they wished they could take back. The prosecution noted in its sentencing memo that Javice had sent a text message calling the Elizabeth Holmes sentence ridiculous. She received 85 months. Holmes received 135. She remains free on bail, pending appeal, as of this documentary's production.